Speak and pause.
And so far we have Steve, Walter, Jim, and Ed here. We're missing Jen. Do we have word on Jim?
Jim's here.
Jen or Jim?
Oh. I haven't heard from Jen.
Okay. And we know Tammy's out.
Tammy's out.
Okay. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So we're missing Jen and Tammy at the moment. We do have a quorum. Did anybody have a chance to review the minutes from our August 24th meeting?
I did.
Okay. Any changes?
Just have one minor comment, and now I need to go pull up the document and find it. And I'm forgetting where I saved that document now. It was literally a one-word change, and I will, no, I can't email it to you. I'm sorry, let me find that email from Karen.
Anybody else besides Ed find any additions, deletions? If not, once Ed has that change, we'll need a motion.
Got it.
Okay.
So it's on page 4 of the minutes. Said board member Goshiski stated that his appreciation for the master plan and asked if parking was efficient for the ultimate build out, and that efficient should have been sufficient. And that's my total change.
With that change, we'll need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I have Jim as a yes, Steve, yes, and Walt, yes.
Yes.
We have a unanimous consent or unanimous approval. So we have no old business. We'll move on to new business, which is item A, review of United Development Ordinance sections 1 through 6. Lisa, if you and Kevin could take over, please.
Yeah, I'll let Kevin go ahead and start.
Very good. Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Appreciate the opportunity to work with you all on this. What I thought I would do is really try to give an overview, brief overview of this first deliverable of the executive summary overview section plus articles 1 through 6 of this draft UDO. What you have in front of you and what you've had a chance to have at least for a few weeks is I'll call it a good draft. It's not a final draft. I do want to assure everybody that we'll end up with a proofreading exercise here at the end. But I do want to punt that kind of more detailed, make sure defined terms match up and all that kind of thing, which is a somewhat time-consuming exercise toward the end of the project when we're sure we don't have substantive changes. So I'm not running the meter on that 2 or 3 times for the town. But this should be I'll say a near, in substance, it should be pretty close to a final draft. Remind everybody kind of our organizing principles here. We're trying to pull together a new unified development ordinance that complies exactly with the state statutes of 160D fairly recently adopted by the state legislature, and then pull in the substance of all of the applicable existing Weddington ordinances, get all those in a simpler and organized fashion. And if we do that correctly, we'll end up with less total words than current, easier to follow and compliant with the statute, but absolutely spot on with the development standards, and no lowering of any bars or any of the standards for development in the town. So this very first page is the table of contents, and this is the structure that's in the state statute. Articles 1 through 14 are the same articles that are in the state statute, so that's why you have that there. Color coding, I talked with Lisa in your chair. That's just so you know what's coming. Blue, the color coding in blue is pretty much mine or Lisa's handiwork on the drafting. We added that for this talking point for this presentation. And then you'll see further down where we've color coded for things in the that are already existing in your ordinance, like here in green, that's a cut and paste out of your existing non-conforming use section. Anything that's not color coded is at least close to verbatim from the state statute. Again, I'll say close. I may have tweaked a little bit on the fly, but nothing of substance. So what I'd like to do, I guess the other thing I'll say before jumping into each section, comments were light pre-meeting comments from you folks, which is reasonable and what I had expected from this section. I think I'd like to think that this first deliverable is a little bit on the easier side as far as our work together. Most of this is just organization and I'll say at some level background information that's right out of the state statute. So I was not expecting a whole lot of feedback from folks on this topic. Meetings to follow will be a little different. So this is a good kind of trial run for us. You're certainly welcome after this meeting. If you have comments, if you would want to email Lisa and I with any additional comments you have, you know, what I'm doing kind of in the background here is collecting all comments, and I will have them at the ready to make revisions when we get to the final draft, assuming we're kind of generally on track, right? So if this is, if folks are feeling comfortable, like I expect everybody will with the overall structure here, I'll have the working list of detailed comments to come pull in for what will truly be then a final draft for you later. Okay. So Lisa, if we could just take it from the top, I might move up just a little bit to the executive summary just to anchor everybody. I would just encourage all of you, I mean, really every assignment, this is probably worth to just take a quick look through. I'm doing it myself every time. This is a forest for the trees. How is the whole UDO going to work? We list, you know, where it's applicable, obviously in town. You know, number 2 is the boards. You know, who are the players involved? The boards, the staff, the agencies. 3 sets out how you anchor a development ordinance with planning. 4 is an overview of the types of processes and procedures that are in your ordinance and should be in everybody's ordinances. Breakdown of those. 5, list your zoning districts. So that's kind of easy to read in one place with a note that you have the existing districts plus the conditional zoning where folks can come in and request changes. 6 is a summary of the permitted uses, kind of the organizing structure of most ordinances are the zoning districts and then what's allowed, what uses are allowed. And we'll end up with a nice, you know, permitted use table in the end here. And then section 7 is just a really good summary of type of decision, the approvals that come out of this development ordinance, who's responsible for it, and in a few cases, some comments. So I would just, again, Lisa and I spent a good bit of time on that. It's just 3 pages, but it was a lot of work to distill really hundreds of pages of stuff into a few paragraphs. And I would just encourage that to be on your kind of regular reading list as we go through each of these phases of the work. Article 1, general provisions, again, following the state statute. All of these subsections are the state statute references. We will ultimately, as you see the first blue reference, will add any specific definitions from our zoning ordinance that would need to be added. In addition to, there's a whole list of definitions that's in the state statutes. I'm kind of putting that in the proofreading category. That's something to handle as part of the cleanup at the end. D103 in blue, another kind of note to self and to all of you. Eventually, as we build this, I may end up pulling in some of the other references, and I just wasn't ready to do that yet. I think at least one of you had a comment here. The idea would be that about like which ordinance would control, and are we sure? We need to be sure at the end that this ordinance controls, and that we'll end up terminating the other ordinances will be part of the ultimate approval. So the answer to the question is this ordinance, and it will explicitly identify at the end what is being deleted. Now, for anybody's actual development, it shouldn't make any difference because everything is going to be the same governing anybody's project. So, but the answer to the comment and the question is every ordinance that we pull into here will ultimately be terminated. D105, and added in the tailored to us reference to the town of Weddington's zoning map. That's not in the state statute, obviously, so added that there as a necessary housekeeping matter. I actually don't know if there will be other maps when I haven't made it to the floodplain section yet in the stormwater section, but there may be, so I just left a placeholder in hopes of not forgetting that when we get to the later stages of the project. Lisa, if you could hold just a second, I'm gonna keep moving, but I do want to get the top of the section for everybody. Let's see. Right, because section 109, conflicts of interest, was a comment section that folks had. I do want to try to hit everybody's comments along the way. So let me pause on this one. A couple of you all asked about the conflict of interest section. And this is, I think, was a matter of case law and really School of Government, Chapel Hill interpretation in the past. This language is real close to verbatim as right out of the state statute as the legal standard for when the governing board, meaning the town council, when they have to recuse themselves. And then part B, appointed boards, when you all would have to recuse yourselves as having a conflict of interest. So it's an important topic. I don't know that there is much flexibility on this. This is, I don't know that it's the easiest to read or understand section, but it is straight out of the state statute. And it tries to, the policy thing lurking here is to strike a bit of a middle ground. For sure, they don't want board members voting on their own financial interest, but the idea of the state law is also that board members should not be opting out of difficult votes or awkward situations just because they're uncomfortable. And other statutes about voting, really require folks to vote and to participate. So I would say, while I think there could be, there's some cases around what these words mean, but I certainly understand the questions, that there's going to be some judgment as a practical matter probably in some of these cases about what counts as substantial financial impact, for example. or what counts as, I think somebody particularly flagged the word a social relationship in the very last line there. And I just think practically all I know to do is if the situation comes up to have folks consult with me or Karen or your town attorney and make as good a decision as we can. I will say, as a matter of my practice and just thoughts on this, I've tended to be cautious and been more likely to have folks opt out of voting than to opt in. I kind of figure you're better off missing the rule that maybe I was too cautious about a conflict of interest than not cautious enough. But you might get some different thoughts on that from different attorneys. But that's I hope address comments. I may pause there and see if anybody had comments or want to ask questions about that, because several of you flagged that section.
Kevin, is C, the administrative staff conflict of interest, is that new with the new 160D stuff?
It is.
I don't remember seeing that before.
It is new. I think we'll likely see some practical challenges on that in some smaller places. I mean, you kind of think through, Lisa, what would happen if somebody came through that, who would do the work, right? If somebody came through who you had a closer relationship with. So I think we'll get some practice on that across the state, and the School of Government will be a good resource. Again, I'm sorry, I'm not going to remember who flagged a social relationship, but that's a really good detailed catch, because that's a new phrase, and I don't know exactly what it means. I mean, I'm sure the intent is, be like my law partner probably is clearly in. I don't know if it's somebody I do a lot of business with on some other matter, whether it comes in. So I would say good questions. I don't have great answers to you. I think as a drafting matter, I would recommend that we track the state law, and then as a matter of practice, try to be on top of this issue the best we can and err on the sides of disclosures and good communication rather than not.
Well, how about the issue, since we're going to talk about it, the issue of it not being a particular thing that directly impacts a council member, for instance, but sets a precedent for later on. Is there something about that? Ethics, I realize, is not well understood by most people, it seems to me anyway, watching that. But I'm just concerned about setting a precedent by one particular vote that's not a direct impact, which is what those things seem to say to me. I can talk at a later time about it, and maybe I need to go back and read some more government stuff too, or some law stuff.
Yes, sir. I will give you the beginnings of a legal answer, and then in a particular fact and context, I might have some nuance to this, but generally, if you do not have a direct, substantial financial interest, the expectation is you have to vote. I mean, there's another statute on voting, right? I mean, it's going to be the idea if you don't participate, it's an automatic yes. And so the precedent of if it's, it is a precedent. If it's not a financial interest, you have to vote on it. And then what I'd like to think we would be consistent about, and what I would like to think I would be consistent about in my advice, is what counts as direct, substantial, readily identifiable. That's where I would have the practice point of wanting to be very consistent with how we interpret the language. But there's a competing consideration of I would not overly read that overly broad to to have, I mean, especially when you're talking legislative decisions. I mean, part of the process is folks are allowed to lobby and speak to people and try to persuade. That's the whole purpose of a lot of processes, is to persuade.
Okay,
Fair enough. And happy to have some further discussion on any of these.
Well,
we will.
this is Ed. The concern I had was on the last section where, as you were saying on the first part of that paragraph is like, if you don't have a financial conflict, you're expected to vote. But then it ends with, but if it's involving a person with whom the member has a close familial, business, or other associational relationship, you can't vote. And I'm going, that is such a broad, loosey-goosey definition. I don't know what that means. If I have a cousin I haven't talked to in 4 years, is that a close family relationship? To me, it surprised me that you said that this language comes out of state statute and school of government. Sounds like it's feed forward work for attorneys because it's so poorly defined.
I'm smiling. One of my smart aleck comments is the Full Employment for Lawyers Act. So
that's how a lot of legislation is written.
I understand the joke. Let me say, I'm not going to argue with you over a social. That's a word that I would expect that we'll end up with some further definition or possibly some changes in the state statute on. You were asking me to predict, and if you want an area where if I see anything that comes up during this process that defines it, that would be an example of something I might be tempted to add as a clarification. That would be a theme that you might see in a couple places here if we end up getting some further guidance, whether it's case or practice from other people. But I'm gonna put a star by this one as something to pay careful attention to. Okay.
Now, the document that you have up on the screen there now, what is that where we have a very firm definition for familial relationship?
That should be the same one you've had.
That's
all it is. It's all out.
Okay. All right. There it is. It's down further. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So that's a topic we'll, again, I'm gonna recommend to you that we keep the language pretty much as is. Maybe a future item of discussion for you. If we happen to get state statute revisions or further guidance, I could see that being an area with some supplementing to these definitions coming at some point. Okay. All right, Lisa, I'm good to keep moving then, I guess. We should pause here too, because this was another one on the short list where folks had comments. The non-conforming use section. This is right now copied in verbatim out of your own ordinance, and I think to keep us moving tonight, I'm not going to go over everybody's comments on this. There were some places where several of you questioned whether our existing ordinance language really is as solid as it could be. A couple places where I think I would agree with you that it's probably surprisingly broad in some respects. Or perhaps a little bit unclear with the use of words like destruction. I don't know about destroying a use, for example. So that would be a topic when you could expect to see some modest red lines in the final kind of editorial version of this. But at this stage of development of the ordinance, I think what I'd say is, nobody disagreed with it being here, and the changes were relatively small. So I'm gonna put that in the kind of ending, detailed final drafting exercise when we true everything up. But I will pause if anybody feels like their comment was I guess more than I've just given justice to. If anybody has comments or questions they'd like to bring up on this for the group, I'll pause there. Okay. So Lisa, I think we can just move through all of these and not bog us down on the details of that. So we'll pick up some momentum now. Is Article 2 is a short article. It really is just housekeeping stuff to say that we're, the jurisdiction's Weddington, so that's kind of a nothing. Article 3, and you'll follow, we're kind of tracking our executive summary. These are the boards and organizational arrangements, the folks that play the positions on the field for this. Copied in existing planning board language. Good comment. I know we've just made some changes to change the turnover date to March. And I paused. I thought about deleting this altogether and just figured who cared about what the 1987 start was. So I do have a comment that will update this language to reflect the March turnover date now and make this meet our current situation. So that's a good comment. Keep going here, Lisa. The duties I left in per the state statute that were a close approximation to what's in our own wording, but I just defaulted to the current legal standard. Same kind of exercise with the Board of Adjustment, copied out of our ordinance. Very well may do a similar update there. And then tailored to Weddington here in this first pass, the other hats that I guess you all wear, and I wasn't even familiar with all this, I'm embarrassed to say. I don't recall if I've been to one of your appearance or Historic Preservation Commission meetings yet, but my understanding is you all serve those roles as well, so we'll tailor that, and that you all are also the Stormwater Review Board. So those blue comments are tailored to Weddington, of course.
I just saw something here, Kevin. We have it up here. We can get rid of it.
Okay, that's a good catch. Yeah.
Have it down here.
Yeah.
Under other.
Yeah, let me make a note of that too. That's good. Okay. All right, so let's go down to 4. I think that's pretty much it for the board section, Lisa. So I mean, this is all pretty driven by state statute here in section 4. I don't really have any comments here. I don't believe anybody else did. Let me check my notes on that real quick. Make sure I'm not overlooking one.
I was just surprised in section 4.03 that a leasee can request a change in zoning. That just surprised me.
Yeah, that probably is heading toward a ground lease idea, and you know, technically anybody can request a rezoning. Now, whether anybody's going to pay attention to it is another question for a general rezoning, and of course, you'd have to get for conditional rezoning, you have to have a property owner as part of that consenting to it. So,
At what section?
It was just a highlight I did in 4.03 because I didn't make a comment. I just highlighted it for myself. 4.03A, not 403A.
there was also a comment on 403C, I believe, and this may be a similar in concept to the one about a social not being clearly defined enough. The in C, sure I've got this right. I think that's the substantial completion reference that might be a bit of a term of art too. Different. Let me catch up on those in my notes. Right in the middle of C, Lisa, about 5 lines down, about these permits expiring after 1 year if it's not been substantially commenced. I believe that has to mean practically work on the ground, because we're talking about a permit's already been issued. So it's the design element of this ought to be done. So I would anticipate this being an area where there may be some future evolution if we're I'm gonna go with the Full Employment for Lawyers Act smart aleck comment here, approach to it. I think some overlap between when you have a vested right and when you can lose a permit because you have not substantially commenced is likely an area of some disagreement down the road. So I want to give a little thought to whether it's worth it to try to improve on that definition of substantially commenced or not is a comment that I thought was a good one that came up in the emails. So I'll just note that for folks as a issue that had come up. The rest of it, I really feel like we just need to follow what the state statute says here and go with it. I don't think practically you're likely to look at it very often. Quasi-judicial procedures, again, if we get into that with a variance or what have you, we'll have to follow the rules, and we ought to just be lockstep with what the state statute says on that. Article 5, planning, again, requirement from the state that you anchor these ordinances to comprehensive plans, which obviously you all have and do. So that's more housekeeping. Section 6, I added the parenthetical for what the section really is. It's an overview of the procedures for adopting and amending UDO text or rezonings, and that includes this conditional zoning exercise. I don't really think there's much of substance new here, and this is an area where I'll end up dropping some of your existing Weddington text on process and just replace it with the exact words of the state statute. We'll get to the same place, and then we won't have to spend any energy worrying about whether we're in compliance with the state law or not. Our rules will be the same. The blue is my editorial ad to be clear that a CZ rezoning is an example of a change to the zoning map. And I just have to edit my own preference for making that clear as we're going forward. So that, I don't believe we had any comments of substance, at least to that section. And that may be it. Lisa, can you give me a minute to flash back in my notes? I feel like I may have missed one section that I meant to grab on the comments. So let me look here real quick. I don't know why I've got in my head, I forgot one. Hold on, let me go back. I red coded my own sheet here. Oh, I know what I missed. I missed it right at the beginning. Is D104, another comment that had come in about just asking and confirming. I mean, this is right out of state statute. Again, my language advice is going to be keep this. But Lisa, can you get to that D104? Development approvals run with the land, and what that means is that, you know, the permits or conditional zoning or any approval for a piece of property goes with the property. It does not go with the owner or the person. So if you all, you know, if I come in with a conditional rezoning for a conservation residential neighborhood and I add extra open space and I do this and I do that, that those rules follow whether I sell the property or whether I develop it myself. And that's been what the case law has been all along, but that's explicit in the in the state statute, and I thought worth it just to track to be explicit with that in the UDO as well. So that's the one I had in my mind I missed. So I apologize for skipping over that. So team, I think that's all I really have on this for this first section. Like I said, this is a a little bit lighter work. It's a lot of housekeeping. You're probably starting to see how I'm kind of thinking through the drafting of this, right? Default to the state statute so I can assure compliance where I can. We'll add in the Weddington pieces either verbatim, or if we think we can improve on the language or simplify it, we will. And then we'll kind of go through that exercise through the entire process here. Lisa's pulling up for you. She and I are checklisting. We'll basically continuously do this. The School of Government has got a really nice checklist about these are all the things you have to do to be in compliance with 160D. So I believe the way Lisa reviewed my draft of this, I think she put these two documents right up and said, Kevin, did you get this one or not? And got me corrected on one or two. And so that's kind of going on behind the scenes to try to assure compliance there. And we've got some good help from the Chapel Hill folks. And I would anticipate the kind of heavier lift for our group is going to be kind of Article 7 and Article 9 when we really get into the Weddington zoning districts and how do we write that hopefully a little better, but without changing any substance. And same thing on the uses. So we're going to try to get less words to say the same thing will be the goal. And we'll be looking at you all to help us have an extra set of eyes on multiple sets of eyes. So we do a nice job of that. So does anybody have any questions about the 1 through 6 deliverable? Okay. Can I keep the reins for 2 more minutes and talk about what we're thinking for the next meetings, which is it's football season now and kind of a slight change in plans. I think after talking with Lisa in your chair, we want to slow the train down just a little from what I had originally put out to you at the last meeting. So if I could, what we're thinking about going forward is for your next meeting to give you just Article 7. Just Article 7 at the next meeting in October, and meaning you all will have that in your emails boxes a week or so from now to have a few week run up to that. And then we'll do 8 and 9 together. 8 should be quicker. 9 will be a lift again in November. Then in December, we'll do the last bucket of them through 14, which I believe will be more like this. Okay, be more a cut and paste out of the state statute. And then what we're adding in January is I'm going to start calling it the kind of the editorial meeting where you all can actually get in advance, and I'll get it. I'll build this as we go, but you all will see the red lines to these drafts, right? So you can check them back up against your own notes. You can check them up against comments, and that we can do a group exercise on the entire, and that'll be the real final draft then. So what I'd like to do is have you all in a position, I hope, where you all can unanimously recommend it to the elected folks by the end of January. And then we can tee up probably another work session with them, and then tee up the formal approval process end of first quarter, second quarter of 2021. So that's a slight extension of schedule, but I think a smart decision. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate your whipping through that for us. Anybody have any other questions for Kevin through 1 through 6?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. If not, Kevin, thank you. Appreciate your time this evening.
Yep, very good. Thank you all so much. More to follow.
And then from the board's perspective, let's move on to new business item B as in boy. Discussion recommendation of text amendment 58-8 for landscaping, tree save, and tree replenish requirements. Lisa, if you can help us from there. And I did find my notes on that. I apologize earlier.
Good, thank you. Back at the retreat, we talked about adopting a tree ordinance, and I believe I brought in a comprehensive tree ordinance from another town. After talking with the urban forester, he pretty much said that our RCD conservation subdivision does what we want for it to do to save trees, 50% open space, and save those big cluster of trees. But we still wanted something for these R40 subdivisions. So he gave us some small changes that we could incorporate possibly with this UDO text amendment. And I was going to quickly run through those examples with our most current sketch plan. This is Atherton subdivision, phase 5. It's an R40, 40,000 square foot minimum lot subdivision. It extends the existing, I think is it Farmer Mill Road, and then backs up to Evans Manor. So some of the suggestions he made included, I'm gonna see if you guys can see this drawing, is no removing trees inside any of the setbacks. So we're saving large tracts of trees kind of behind these rear lot lines. Along the back of here, along the back of here, anywhere where they're not grading for utilities or drainage, we can do some side yard tree save areas. No, obviously no grading in any floodplain. So that's all going to be saved. And then we'll have some more between lots back here. And anywhere where you don't see purple, we would require tree safe fencing. He also suggested just quickly adding it every 40 feet, requiring the street trees. We can quickly add, can you guys see my green marks?
Yes.
Okay, we can quickly add street trees. And as you can see, we're kind of getting to the intent of reforesting some of this land. Another suggestion was on-lot trees. So if a street tree would count, but they'd have to have 4 trees per lot, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. So we would start requiring before they get a CO for every house to have another 2 trees planted in the back. And then quickly you can see, I mean, these are canopy trees that we would require. We're quickly getting some trees back. And then again, around open space. So there's a calculation for every acre of open space. You have to have so many canopy trees, understory trees, and whatever else. So we're able to start getting into some larger swaths of saving trees. These are just some simple examples that we can do without writing an entire tree ordinance. There's also some sections in there about maintenance, tree preservation, fencing, and then of course the violation section. Still needs to be reviewed by the arborist and the town attorney, but it's just a quick start that I was hoping to get some comments on.
You would have saved me a lot of money if we had this ordinance in place when I bought my home. I wouldn't have to put all those trees in myself.
It might be a good idea to offer different types, species of trees so that it doesn't look like it's all, because it's great to put them on street trees, but then if they all get to be the same, you lose the, and maybe stagger some so it looks more natural.
In a town up north that I worked for, that's a good idea because of some diseases out there.
Yeah.
Could take out the entire row of street trees that every so many linear feet you had to change out the type of tree. So that's an easy add in there for sure. Get some variety.
Yeah.
I assume the arborist would have recommendations as to acceptable trees and unacceptable trees from what's invasive and what's native to the area.
Yep.
That would be incorporated.
Yep, we have a list for our landscape ordinance. I'll have him review that as well. Um, and then obviously native are preferred.
Mhm.
Lisa, I'd have to look at that and see what the 20-year look for the canopy of those trees are. By requiring 2 in the front and 2 in the back, especially on these smaller lots, is that going to overpower the house and the whole yard?
So this would be for major conventional subdivisions only.
Okay.
I do think we did add something about street trees in our conservation ordinance, the changes we did with Randall. We talked about the houses feeling a little bit closer because of the smaller lots and the less setbacks. And one way to space those out was just the idea of the street trees. I think we do have that in our conservation. So this is
Le-
40,000
Lisa,
lots only. Yep.
Lisa, this does not prevent the clear cutting that's going on now, does it?
It attempts to. You can see all the purple where they have to cut the lots to get them to drain towards the roads, to get them to drain towards that big pond. So the initial thought was to maybe lessen the detention requirements, go down from a 100-year storm down to like a 25-year storm if they save some trees. But that's, there's no program that I found. I think Wilmington kind of had some of the ideas similar to that. I think it's going to take a larger study of what is that number of trees over how much land do you need to save trees versus take them all down for detention. So there's.
Yeah, well, I think this is a giant step in the right direction.
I think so. And it's more than this looks so small. It's on such a small screen and plat, but there's more room between homes that, you know, 30 feet between every house where we're not doing the purple lines. It's more tree save. Some of these front yards where we're not doing purple lines, that's more tree save. So
Okay.
that's the goal.
Lisa,
And
you want
obviously,
feedback
well,
tonight,
I
or
shouldn't
you
say
don't
obviously,
have to
if
vote, or what
we're
do you
saving trees in an area, then that area would not require obviously additional planting within that area that's kept native.
Yeah, for the on-lot trees, yes.
Lisa, you looking just more for feedback tonight, or what is our objective for tonight?
Yeah, I'm hoping to have Kevin put it in our new UDO, so we go through that text amendment process and public hearing. As we go through that process, so yes, feedback, but then also be ready to approve when you see it as part of the UDO.
Or Lisa, are you proposing in this language that the two, you know, in addition to 2 street trees for 1 acre zoning, that there would be 2 backyard trees or just 2 additional trees on the property?
I think I wrote it that it's in the rear. Let me go to that real quick. Minimum of 4. If you have more than 1 acre, 6. At least 2 trees shall be in the front yard and backyard of each lot.
Okay.
Required street trees can be counted towards this fulfillment and existing canopy trees outside of the required zoning setbacks that are 6 inches or larger can be counted.
What I was looking at, in addition, if you scroll down in the penalty section, in item B is in boy, 2B, scroll down a little bit more. All right, so there you go, planting requirement of 4 trees for every tree removed, but it doesn't say what size those trees have to be. We probably need to get a caveat of what size those trees are, equal to or something along those lines. Because otherwise somebody may put in a twig or something like that. We need to probably tighten that down just a touch. And maybe you've capsuled it somewhere else.
Yeah, at least like if I did, I'll reference. I think required at least a 2-inch tree, but I think a reference needs to be there.
Lisa, one more quick question.
Yep.
If I have a 8-acre lot and I want to put a house on it, do I have to follow any of this? Because I'm not a developer and this seems to be pointed toward developments.
I have it for any new major residential development. So right now that's 3 lots or more.
Yeah.
Do we want to do tree requirements for single lots?
That's my question. I think if we're headed toward a tree city, then we might consider adding that.
I'm sorry, Walt, you want to add it for individual lots? So if an individual comes and makes one lot, you want to have the tree requirements there?
Well, there's, yes, in short, or I want to be told why not.
So they wouldn't be able to remove trees within the setbacks. They would have to plant new trees. There won't be any open space, so 4 wouldn't apply.
Right?
And there wouldn't really be a new street tree.
Okay, we're covered then, basically.
So as long as one keeps them from clear cutting the entire lot,
Okay, that was my question.
maybe we could apply a single lot for 1. What do you guys think?
I'm comfortable with 3 or more lots. I'm not comfortable with a single lot issue.
I just didn't want to have to make them do a tree survey for each lot. That's what I'm trying to avoid. We did it in Marvin, and I spent hours counting trees, and then they could only fit so many trees anyways. It was just kind of a waste of time and money.
I would rather leave the individual home builder, home buyer alone.
Okay,
Concentrate more on the development arm.
okay.
Now, that's my opinion, but the board can make a decision on that. That's up to you guys. Any other comments?
This is Ed. I like the idea that even on a single family, single lot, 1-acre property, if someone wants to develop a vacant piece of property, put a house up on a 1-acre lot, the tree preservation aspect of it, I think, is still important. That we're not going to let the development next door, we're not going to let them do clear cutting, but if you've got a 1-acre lot, we'll let you come in and clear it out. To me, that's not keeping a consistency in the development of the town. So I'd like to think a little bit more about it, but that's my gut reaction is, yeah, if we want to do tree maintenance and maintain existing trees, I think we need to apply that across as much development as we can.
The reason I asked the question, at the corner of Beulah Church Road and Homestead, going into Lake Providence South, a single developer on a single lot came in and basically clear cut everything except on the fringes. And I'm not sure what kind of house they were planning on putting in there, but they basically clear cut the lot, and it does not match any of the other lots in that particular area. And I was just awakened to that idea that it could happen, and I wasn't sure if this ordinance covered it or not. So I appreciate Ed, and I appreciate your point of view, Brad. Maybe a little bit more discussion when we have everybody.
With that specific lot, I pass that lot twice a day, every day.
Yep.
It's not favorable by no means, but at the same time, there are plenty of trees there of size, even though they're on the fringes. And would I have done it? No, but that's what the owner decided to do with his land, and that may be more of an HOA issue for most neighborhoods. But with that particular lot, there's still plenty of trees there that surround that property. But I really don't want to get into the policy of individual home builders, individuals who want to build their own home. If I go buy a lot somewhere, then I got to go stamp carton trees.
Right.
Okay.
Depends on the footprint too.
That's up to other members of the board, but that's my personal opinion.
Well, I'm good with that. I just wanted the discussion.
Sure. Anybody else have any thoughts? Jim? Steve?
Just the footprint of the house. I mean, if it's a large ranch, a wide one, a deep one, there's a lot of variables to it.
Yeah,
But
okay.
worth consideration.
Okay. If anybody don't have any further comments, we'll move on to item 6, which is an update from town planner. Lisa, I think you're muted. Thank you.
We see your lips moving.
The council has decided to extend the terms, the planning board terms, to March. With the holidays and the elections, it's hard to do interviews for new planning board members, and they thought it'd be easier to extend that to March. So I think Walt and Brad, if you're willing, can give us 3 more months. And then we'll start asking for applications in January. Also, there's a rezoning request. It hasn't formally came in. I met with a developer for 12 Mile and 84 to go over process. I told him our land use plan is residential. It's zoned residential. They wanted to do a shopping center type development with apartments or townhomes in the back. After speaking with me, they wanted to get some feedback from the adjacent neighborhoods, and apparently they made it sound like it was a done deal, that we'll address your concerns, but we're still going to move forward, and planning board and council will vote for this. So there's a lot of talk on Nextdoor about this project. I have not received an application, and I don't believe there's any support at all from any of our council members. So if you do hear anything about that, I don't have anything formal. So
clarify that real quick. I was make sure there's no misunderstanding. The terminology used, the council will vote for this, but you were talking to vote on the motion, on the application, not for the property, correct? So the council is going to vote at some point on this particular project, but at this moment, there's no thought that they would want to proceed with that. Is that what my understanding is?
Anyone can apply for a rezoning. Sure. If right now there's zero support, so it would have
that's
to,
what we wanted to hear. Okay.
So it would have to go to you all for recommendation and go through the public hearing, and it would have to go to council, but there's zero support. Just so you know, in case you get a phone call and what's going on. But that's it.
Thank you, Lisa. Any comments from board members? Steve, Jim, Walt?
Yeah, thank everybody for all the work there. That's a hell of a lot of work get done. If you want to see what UDO looked like when it was finished, the Seven Devils, North Carolina, on their town website has been UDO for about 5 years. And I think we made giant progress tonight on where we want to go with it. It's looking good to me.
Good. Thank you, Walt. Ed?
Nothing else?
Okay. With that, I'll need a motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Y'all have a nice night.
Thank you.
Brad, roll call.
The second. We're not getting our seconds either.
Oh, okay.
I second that motion to adjourn.
Steve,
Thanks, Ed.
Ed, second. Anybody want a second? Ed?
Ed seconded it.
Ed was the second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Roll
It's been
call.
a long day for me. I'm sorry, folks.
Roll call.
We got it.
Steve, Jim, Walt, Ed, all in favor?
Bye.
I'm blowing this right in front of the attorney. That's a good move for a
That's why we caught you.
All right, thanks, guys. Y'all have a good evening. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. And Ed, really
Yeah.
quick, thank you for, I did notice you stepped in on some of the chatter on next door
Oh, yeah.
to catch that 12 Mile Creek and 84.
Well, I was trying to be very careful in my comments also, just to say this has not come before the planning board or the town council, and we'll have to go through that process before anything will happen. And that seemed to quiet a few people down at place that said they realized it was a process.
Yeah.
I got asked the same question and answered that via email to a couple of people.
Mhm.
So nothing,